think they could, depending on how they are handled. What is needed Can I continue? Okay. I think what is required is to make sure that in a very credible way, the IEC gets to the bottom of the matter. One, they need to explain to the nation what happened. Why is it that there was this ink that some apparently could find it easy just to cause to disappear so that they can vote more than they should have? Why did the error happen? And also investigate how many people did it. I came across a clip. One woman was saying she went to 5 different stations and she was just able to put her hand in the mouth. The ink was eliminated and she was well received wherever she went. She's not quite clear whether she voted or not, but it's on a video there, and another man also says the same thing. I think that a thorough investigation, which may even require the inclusion of people from outside of the IEC, would help dispel whatever concerns people might have about the credibility of the elections.
Thank you, ma'am. Sir, just as my name is the government president for Africa. Just want to ask you, said that it's, in a time like this, South Africans need to be vigilant, especially now. Is this a reflection on the political party that's coming in place, considering that Mr. Ramaphosa has been seen to be one who is going to deal with the corruption that's taking place? Is it really a time to be that more vigilant than the leader who was in place before President Cyril Ramaphosa?
It really has nothing to do with any political party. It has everything to do with every political player, every party that holds out a person as the best of who can represent them need to be looked at very closely by members of the public so that when there is something unbecoming about them, they can be exposed for who they really are. And also in terms of performance, people must watch very closely whether those that are their public representatives do what they have undertaken to do. That vigilance is critical. Remember, for a very long time, we were not as vigilant as we were forced by circumstances to be at some stage. We should never discard that responsibility to be vigilant. We must never rely on anybody to do our assignment for us of ensuring that things happen the way they ought to be. We have an individual and collective responsibility.
Chief Justice, it's Govan Whittles from eNCA.
Please use this one.
So it's Govan Whittles. Like in the period that we were in, thanks so much. When did the and then secondly, do you think our democracy has been strengthened in any way that would prevent an abuse of office or prevent members of parliament being unfaithful to the interests of South Africa? Is there something that we can do to ensure that?
I think the judiciary as an arm of the state has played its part to make sure that whenever public office bearers fail to discharge their constitutional obligations and they are brought to court, that which the Constitution demands of us to do under those circumstances is done. So the public protector and other institutions have also gone a long way to ensuring that nobody gets away with murder, so to speak. And that has created a higher level of vigilance in South Africa, but much more is required. Don't live with people whose credibility you know is suspect and keep quiet. It applies to us wherever we are. public servants should never, in the hope of being promoted, turn a blind eye to abuse of power and the corruption that they are aware of. We've got to expose every rotten apple in our midst.
Secondly, I asked her, how do you think we got to where we are in this wilderness?
I think many South Africans had outsourced their thinking responsibilities. Many South Africans took for granted the power that they wield as citizens and as voters. Many South Africans fail to appreciate that it's open to them at any given time when they are unhappy to even march. Just remember, when did they march collectively? For the first time when there was a challenge. It's something that we've got to be doing on an ongoing basis, not against some, but against all who do not appear to be as committed as they ought to be to their responsibilities. Part of the problem, of course, is we cover up for some. We knowingly cover up for some and target others. It should never be. Our vigilance should cut across the spectrum. Nobody should be spared, not even the judiciary.
Chief Justice, I would just like you to ventilate the question which you said you get asked as to, are you not ashamed to be a minister in the Board of Office to some of the people who are going to be members of the provincial legislature and the National Assembly? But also, I would like to know if you as another arm of the state, as the judiciary, feel that we could improve the bare minimum with which we hold our members accountable. Surely cannot just be okay that one does not face a criminal proceeding, therefore is remain modeling to less than people. Some things are much more complicated. So I'm more interested in what you think we do about the gray areas.
It's a very difficult and potentially compromising question to put to a judge. But I think here is the point. Structures that exist, including political parties, owe it to those who vote for them to serve them only through the best. And it is those who vote who ought to bring pressure to bear on those that identify their public representatives. Now, the structure that exists maybe calls for review, but it is for South Africans to say, what is the best way of identifying people who can represent us in government? What is the most effective way? Let me explain myself. In other jurisdictions, in other nations, a person does get to stand before the electorate to say, I'm so and so, I'm running for this or the other office, whether parliament or provincial legislature. And the public get to say, but we know you. This is who you are. How dare you even suggest that you have what it takes to represent us? People get to challenge the capacity and the credibility of those who ought to represent them in public office. And maybe the South African public ought to begin to reflect on whether it is something that should be factored into our electoral system going forward. Am I not ashamed? Well, there is a role that ought to be played by others. That is why there is separation of powers in South Africa. The judiciary can't do everything. Our responsibility is simply to check whether the minimum requirements that have to be met for a person to be sworn in or have an oath administered to him or her as a member of parliament or as a member of the provincial legislature have been met. Beyond that is the responsibility of another person. So I'm not ashamed that in the execution of my responsibilities, I do them exactly the way I'm required to do them. I can't do the responsibility of political parties. They must clean up their own act to the extent that there may be some cleaning up that is necessary.
Spread the fire. I'm here with Kate Bapela, who is the spokesperson for the IEC and maybe the busiest person in South Africa over the last week.
Yes, true.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Good afternoon to you.
Can you just explain briefly what was happening here today? The election results are in. Parliament has to sit. What was this process?
Okay, today was a momentous occasion for us. It's the last leg of our work. What it means is that after the seats were allocated from the IEC point, we then gave numbers and candidates that are going to the National Assembly as well as provincial legislatures to the Chief Justice. So therefore our job today was to hand over the list officially to the Chief Justice. Then from the Chief Justice, it was then handed over to the Secretary of Parliament. As we heard him saying that then the next leg is for him to swear in the various parliamentarians as well as the executive. So basically for us, this is it. This is the last leg of our work. From here, we're picking our bags, we're out of here.
So you can sleep now.
Absolutely, sleep very well.
Now, just update us on these questions of irregularities and arrests that have been made for double voting, I believe.
Yeah, no, there were claims that people could double vote.
Right.
You remember when we were doing the last press briefing
I
last
recall.
week in Pretoria at the Results Operations Center in Pretoria.
Yes.
One of the things that was clarified by the head of the police was that anyone who attempted to double vote or to triple vote and they were found, the law says that these people constitute a criminal offense. And as we speak, some people are in cells, some people have applied for bail, so we're very serious about that. If you still have other people that claims to have done that, bring them to us. And then we'll hand them over to the police. We're very serious about this because our question becomes, after such hard work by officials of the Electoral Commission and the amount of work put by many people to make sure that these elections are credible, they are inclusive, and everybody put in their best work, and then there you come. Then you say, I'll vote twice, 3 times, 4 times? You must be joking. We'll arrest you.
Okay, very clear.
Absolutely.
And the Chief Justice had some praise for your work
Absolutely.
today. How did you feel about the Chief
It
Justice
felt
saying?
extremely good to know that despite the challenges, remember we've been to this court several times just before elections when we needed to update the addresses of voters on the voters' roll. So it was a very grueling process because we had to come here, explain ourselves and beg for mercy after not finding addresses of voters. And then we were given an extension right up to the end of the year because the judiciary was saying that we are still going to do final voter registration, which is what we did in January. And then after that, we went into the polls. That's why during voting, we were given a leeway to have a detour. If you did not have address, we would not allow you to vote before you give us your address. So we're hoping that after that, we'll have many addresses.
Well, Mom, thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Sizwe.
Great to join.
Alrighty.
Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. I'm here with the Acting Secretary for Parliament, Baby Tyawa. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Ned, for an invitation.
Can you explain to our subscribers what was happening today?
Today, what was happening is part of the Constitution. The IEC that manages the elections of South Africa has to hand over a list of the National Assembly members for us to establish the National Assembly. So the sequence goes, the chairperson of the IEC hands over the list, and then to the Chief Justice, who then hands it over to the heads, like the senior officials of Parliament. So me being an acting DG, just to make it simple for people, because they may think acting secretary, what secretary is it? Me being the acting DG receives it on behalf of the senior officials of Parliament. Right. Subsequent to that, we then have a meeting with the Office of the Chief Justice. He comes down to Cape Town in Parliament, working with the Secretary of the National Assembly who deals with procedural matters. We sit down, we get sworn in as officers. So we become like electoral officers ourselves. Right. Then we work under him. Because there's no Speaker of the National Assembly. So
you work under the CJ.
Chief Justice.
Okay.
He then asks us, we call out names of members, 400 of them, who get sworn in by him. Then they constitute the first house of the Democratic Parliament. Right. Because we've got 2 houses. Yes. We've got the upper house with the National Council of Provinces, which doesn't get disbanded in terms of the constitution. Then we have the National Assembly. Yeah.
I
So
see.
we take it from there, and then obviously members get registered on our database. We explain them the benefits that they have. Then, of course, the various processes of parliament will fold out, meaning they have to establish committees of different portfolios.
Right.
But on the day itself, the Speaker of the National Assembly is appointed. Whoever it is takes over from the Chief Justice.
Right, so that's happening on the 22nd, is that right?
Once the Speaker takes over, they then officiate when the Chief Justice moves out.
see.
The Speaker takes over the House, they appoint the Deputy Speaker. Subsequent to that, then they start nominating the President of the country. Then it's voted. If there is another nomination, there's a vote. But if there isn't, it just goes on and then it becomes an overwhelming support
Right.
for whoever is voted as a president of the country. Then the system goes on.
And so we've had the handover of the names. We'll then have the first sitting where the various
Yes.
office bearers are elected. Then we have the first State of the Nation.
Yeah.
What's the process around determining that? Does the new parliament then decide when that will be? I know there's a provisional date.
Yes, because the State of the Nation is a joint sitting. The President will write to both the Chair of the National Council of Provinces and the Speaker of the National Assembly to say on such and such a day, give a date, I will be coming, I'm asking for a joint sitting to come and present my State of the Nation to Excellency. Then the date is declared by him, we accept it, we set the ball rolling. So both houses get assembled in the National Assembly to receive the statement of policy from the president. Naturally, that happens in February of each year, but on an election year, we have two. One February, where they end the last term of parliament, and then this one in June will be the first one in the next administration of this current parliament after the elections.
I see. Well, glad it went well today, and thanks so much for joining us on SMWX.
Thanks.
Hopefully I'll see you at the sauna.
Yes, definitely. You should come if they give you a ticket.
Yeah, we'll see. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX. I'm extremely excited to be joined by one of SA's finest in the journalistic field,
Yeah.
Govan Whittles, eNCA political reporter, everything,
Yeah, political, newsy,
general
human interest.
human interest, been at EWN, and also one of the dopest rappers in the country,
Yeah. What up, man?
What up?
Easy.
known as Van Gogh.
That's right. I paint pictures with words. That's what that's about, Yeah.
Bro, you're becoming a household name, a household face.
Bro.
What's it been like to cover this election at this crazy time in our democracy as one of the rising young voices in journalism in South Africa?
Yeah, incredible pressure, man. I think there's a culture at the moment of confronting power. So you kind of expect whenever you see a journalist or a politician is going to hit with a banger question. But I'm more about like issue-based stories. So I try to have some subtle questions, that would provoke answers that the public may not be surprised by, but would be of general interest.
I like that because there's this expectation that you have to like be confrontational
Yeah.
and cut people off, and like
Yeah, man.
that's not how real life works.
It's not, and that's not. Not everyone in SA has the same interest. Not everyone wants to. Yeah, it's a public interest because there's a majority interest in a certain issue, and of course, the space that we're in SA right now, considering the revelations around how our country is being run, by who it's being run, these shadow kitchen cabinets and everything, it does create this expectation from the general public that you'd be like, when the journalist is with the person of power, he's going to draw out those questions. But then there are actual fiends of politics in SA. I think a lot of people don't realize that South Africa is a really conscientized nation, or we were at least, right, towards the end of the 90s, and then kind of slipped off into our entertainment steez, and now that we realize how captured we are, everyone is starting to pay more attention to politics. But that just means that there are a lot of people there who have genuine political interests. I think we know more about socialism in SA than they do in the US. We know about mining rights. We have a lot of activists. Some of the NGO groups are coming up, and these are all audiences that have their own interests. So I kind of like to throw a question that'll be for them, not just for the general public who wants to see that, bam, confrontation.
So take us behind the scenes, man. Like, what's it like for people who just see you on the screen, like thinking through your questions, or in the field in an election when you try and piece together how it is that you're going to report on a particular issue?
Yeah, so first what I do is I wipe the sweat off my brow because I'm nervous. Then, but secondly, I just try to see where I am, try to locate myself, try to see what the main issues are for the people, for the community that I'm in. Then I obviously take a look at call them the frontal issues. So there are a couple of things that you can't miss, you know? So I mean, like, you look at what was popular in the election, like issues of jobs and economy, unemployed people, how are you gonna, that's the thing, right? I mean, like, a lot of unemployed rhetoric, but not a lot of specifics on how you're gonna create jobs. So try to get those questions out the way, and then try to just relax the subject with the question that's personal to them. Like I was interviewing Tony Leon, you know, and he was in El Dorado Park. So I had to ask him about what he thought about affirmative action and stuff like that, just to get a bit of a... So I try to tailor the questions for the subject, but of course, sometimes you're dealing with representatives, man. So, I mean, there's this incredibly frustrating thing about South African politics where the person that you're interviewing is just full on a representative of the party and they refuse to give you any sort of individual answer or any individual view. And that's what makes it so boring, dude.
For sure.
It makes it so boring because they just give you the spin and the rhetoric, and
you might as well be talking to like an artificial intelligence.
Bro, just please give me the policy off the back of your hand and then good night, sir.
So bro, just finally, any South African hip hop artists that you're liking at the moment, like any new albums that you're listening to that you wanna, just share the range of what you do with.
Snap. I don't know who's out that I'm feeling at the moment. I gotta say, I went to Back to the City.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. That was the biggest African hip hop festival. Man, let me not front. I'm not feeling these cats, bro. Because like we were in the middle of an election and nobody came with it, bro. I mean, like the only political stuff. I like your stuff, but like beyond that, what's really good? Because yo, we had state capture, right?
Yeah.
We had, I gotta say, big shout out to Yanga. He dropped that check, Utatako. That was pretty fresh, you know what I mean? Yeah, but I mean, like, nobody touched on the mood of the country, man.
It's true.
Everyone is still hitting the party vibes. They're still hitting the club, you know. So
we need that moment that captures what's happening right now.
Yo, we need Ben Sharper back, bro.
Hey,
please, dear God, send him back.
Well, bro, we have to implement your idea of like getting a rap battle between political ideologies. Like, it's gonna happen on the channel.
That'll be fresh. I'd like to see who the DA sends.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Yeah. I don't want to mention names.
Thanks for joining us, homie.
Peace out, bro. Take it easy.
For sure. SMWX. No young people are around the decision-making table. Let some new voices come to the fore. Follow us on WhatsApp and catch us live Tuesdays and Thursdays. Out with the old, in with the new. SMWX.